All right, Max. I
Greg.
am off Twitter, but you told me that Twitter blew up earlier this week because everyone, for some reason, decided to start talking about Big 12 expansion again.
All right.
What was the impetus behind this?
Well, no, the Big 12 ADs and coaches, football coaches, are out in Arizona right now getting a presentation from an independent group who are showing them that the Big 12 is
Not
10% less likely to make the playoff in its current format, and they need to have a championship game and expand the conference.
Well, look, I agree. I have been on record. I think I've been pretty consistent. I have a pretty unblemished record of being consistent in this regard. That I don't think that the Big 12 as presently constructed is a sustainable model. Whether you want to measure that by the fact that they don't have a conference championship game and therefore are at a disadvantage for getting into the college football playoff, if you want to measure it that way,
Sure.
or you just want to measure it in a way of comparing it against other conferences. Because let's say right now the Big 12 is about as small as it can be and still be a conference.
Yes.
Right? If one team, they are all kind of all holding hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if one team
Jump
were to
ship.
say, no way. Like let's say your beloved Iowa State Cyclones got a call from the Pac-12.
Okay.
Just go with
Right.
it, okay?
Yeah, I'm going with it.
And they just said, you know what? We can make 5% more money by going to the Big 12. Like the
Right.
net on this would be 5%
Sure.
better for Iowa State. Iowa State would have to do that, right?
Right.
That would be the right move for Iowa State. And if that happens, Big 12's done. They're not going to be. They can't be a
Theoretically.
9 team
Although,
conference.
to be fair,
They can't
I'm
be a
not,
9
I'm
team
not
conference.
entirely sure. Like Iowa State's probably a bad example because you could probably plug Cincinnati in and make the same amount of money as a conference.
Maybe.
So,
You're right,
To be
but-
fair, but if
but my
one of
point-
the
my
bigger
point
teams,
is- my
your
point
point
is-
still remains. Yes, it's very tenuous at
Sure.
best.
And so I've long thought that finally this is an opportunity for the Big 12 to be proactive. And instead of reacting to things like the SEC coming and grabbing
Right.
Texas A&M or the Big 10 coming and grabbing Nebraska or the Pac-12 coming and grabbing Colorado,
yes.
then maybe they can be a little bit proactive and they can say, you know what, let's get ahead of this because there's probably one more seismic shift at least in expansion or in conference realignment.
So I have been with you the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
but the only thing that's changed my mind now is a column that Dan Wetzel wrote, who I used to work with and love very much, that the Big 12 should spend less time figuring out whether to expand its own conference and more time lobbying everyone else to just expand the damn playoff and give automatic bids to the Power Fives, and then this goes away forever.
Interesting.
Right?
That's an interesting counterpoint.
If you expand the playoff to 8 teams and 5 of those spots are guaranteed to conference champions, the Big 12 no longer has any issue whatsoever.
You're right. You're right on the first issue that I brought up. That if you measure a conference's viability based on the ability to get into the conference, the playoff, then yes, I agree. That would fix that problem.
Right.
I still don't think that a 10-team conference is a good idea to move forward with.
Right.
I think
we both agree on that. I'm still not 100% convinced because I don't know where the future of TV is going to go as far as where the money comes from, how it's distributed. It may turn out that things need to stay the way they are because there's just no way to make any more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
other
we
than
may have capped
the playoff.
out. We may have capped out.
You probably make a lot more money by expanding the playoff and hosting that first game on your own campus.
Yeah, that's absolutely
By the
true.
way, this conference, no surprise, is being hosted by the Fiesta Bowl Committee, who would really love it if the Big 12 figured this out
That'd be superb
so that
for
the
them.
playoff didn't get expanded to where the Fiesta Bowl no longer mattered.
That would be superb for them. Yes. So,
But
I think for me,
Yes.
from where I'm sitting right now, today is May 6th, 2016, so you can mark the calendar.
Right.
I think Big 12 expansion is imminent.
Yes.
I think it's going to happen.
Right.
It
And
is eventually going to happen. It may not happen tomorrow. It may not happen next year. It may not happen in 5 years, but I think it's going to happen.
I think all of this is proving that they have decided it's untenable.
Correct.
So, our personal options aside, let's run through 6 teams that are most predominantly being talked about here, and I want you to tell me yay or nay for the conference.
Okay.
All right?
First of all, let's point out that this is already a weird conference. Okay.
It's already a super weird conference.
Iowa State is a super outlier
Right.
And they're not even the biggest outlier
Right.
in their conference.
Right.
Okay? West Virginia's in this conference.
Yeah.
West Virginia's in this conference.
Right.
I have to remind myself like every year. Oh yeah, West Virginia.
They're the only team east of the Mississippi,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really east of the Mississippi.
They're like super east. They're closer to like France than they are to like Texas.
Yeah.
But go on.
Okay. First team, the one everyone has always talked about the most, the BYU Cougars.
If I'm the Big 12, I make a very hard pitch to BYU.
Sure.
I tell them, listen, I say, I roll out the red carpet. I say, you would be a perfect addition to the Big 12. You would expand our map a little bit. You would bring in a lot of revenue.
Yep.
You would get more revenue. You know, we try to sell them in that regard. Would be the way that the Big 12 sells it. There is no reason for BYU to do that, though. In the same reason that there's no reason for Notre Dame to join a conference. BYU found the golden goose.
Yeah.
They found the golden goose, and it is the Notre Dame model,
Yeah.
which is be a big-time religiously affiliated independent.
Yep.
Because they can now start their own conference or their own network, which I believe they already have, although I
Yes.
think it's only like
Ish.
half sports and half like religion. But they have that already. They have an audience that is always going to support them. To me, with BYU, the incentives are totally out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
The Big 12 would really, really want them, and there is no reason for BYU to want the Big 12.
Second team, Cincinnati, who apparently has been lobbying harder than any other team for a very long time.
I get it.
It's a regional matchup for West Virginia, which is a sign of good faith from the conference.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons to like the idea of Cincinnati. That being that you're expanding farther east so that West Virginia isn't as big of an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bigger school than a lot of people think. I want to look at this. Cincinnati University, I guess.
The dirty secret here is they should have made the move on Louisville a long time ago.
I mean, that's
too late now.
right. That's you know how many? You know what their enrollment is? 43,000.
It's a lot.
They would be one of the biggest schools in the conference. Yeah. That's a sneaky big school. Yeah. Okay. There's that. My question is, do you want to walk right into the heart of Big Ten country and try to compete for eyeballs?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I mean, Ohio is – let's be real. Ohio belongs to Ohio State.
Yeah. Never will it belong to Cincinnati.
Never. Yeah. Like, think about the other conferences that operate in Ohio, okay? Yeah. Like the MAC.
Yeah.
Which
the MAC, honestly, is like the conference.
Like,
if you're going to go beyond the Big Ten, the second conference in Ohio is the MAC.
Yes, absolutely.
There's too many teams.
I just don't think. I wonder if the Big Ten or the Big 12 is probably not. It's probably not wise to go and pick a fight with the Big Ten over eyeballs. Yeah. Right now, you have your little part of the country, they have theirs, and everybody can coexist a little bit. So I don't know if you want to start picking fights with them.
Those first two obviously make a lot of financial sense, right? Like, they're still not going to make the conference any money. Everyone's going to lose some money comparatively, right?
They could add Michigan, and and the conference would lose money.
Right. Okay. That said, this next team is one you and I have talked about a lot, and we would both personally as fans be thrilled. Houston.
I have to separate my personal feelings.
I want to see Houston play everyone right now.
For me, if you're asking my heart,
yes,
I'm saying Houston should be in the conference yesterday.
Yes.
Because it makes too much it makes too much sense. If you believe that by losing Texas A&M to the SEC that you lost the Houston market, it makes a ton of sense there. Right. The other thing about...
But you didn't, because Houston is still the Texas market.
Correct. Houston is still the Texas market. It's another school that is bigger than people think. 42,000 is their enrollment.
It's a commuter school.
It is a commuter school, but it is a huge school.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would be the most sound financial decision.
Right.
I think that there are probably, like, BYU would be a better addition from a monetary and eyeball standpoint.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough positives, plus I want to see it so badly.
I know.
That I would say yes, bring in Houston.
Here's a factor that I think people keep giving Cincinnati credit for that they're not giving Houston credit for, and I think it really needs to be you want good partners, right? You want good ADs, you want good coaches as partners. Is there anyone other than Cincinnati more motivated and has shown more ability to build their programs and athletic departments up recently than Houston? I think you want good partners. I understand that they add nothing in TV and market value. I get that. I totally do. But if you want strong partners who seem to be building very great inroads,
Totally agree.
I think Houston's a great addition. I totally get it. Money is the only thing that's going to talk here. It's the only thing. But I think if you're looking, like, no one wants to plant an olive tree anymore.
Yeah.
Right? But a good partner 7 years down the road, I mean, they have a plan. They're trying to build something up, and I think that matters.
I think you are exactly right. I'm on board with that 100%.
All right. Fourth candidate, UCF, because we have to get Florida.
That makes so little sense to me. It's not
And they're
another school.
They're terrible.
Well, it's not just that. First of all, it's in Orlando, right? Is that right?
Yeah, they want to add Orlando is what they're thinking here. But Florida is forever. Florida State, Florida, and Miami. That's who they are. That's
never made any sense to me. And I understand that you want to expand the map, but if you're going to expand the map like that, then you got to go full bore, and you got to go bring in like 5 teams from out east.
Yeah.
UCF makes zero sense to me. Another school that's bigger than a lot of people think. I'm looking this up. UCF enrollment, 60,000.
Yeah. Big school.
It's a huge school, but another commuter school that if you're gonna knock Houston for that, you gotta knock Central Florida for that.
Right.
And Central Florida has zero of the charm of Houston.
Right. And Houston's actually good at lots of things right now and would be competitive.
Sure.
Right?
I agree with that.
Boy.
Also,
One
it's in
that is
Orlando. It's in Orlando, and Orlando's a secret trash city.
It's pretty bad.
Let's go to Disney World.
School that is making a push now that it sees the window is open. Memphis.
Memphis makes a lot of sense to me. It's always made a lot of sense to me from that perspective, because it expands the map a little bit without that you can go and you would be taking the part of kind of the same amount of territory that the SEC took when they took Houston, or I'm sorry, A&M.
A&M.
Yeah. You would be taking that same little part of SEC territory, and I think that because I'm a big believer that these conferences really need to get along. They're better when there's a mutual like agreement between these types of things. I'm big into those types of relationships, and I think that you could do that and bring in Memphis. Which is another program that has made a push and is trying to make a push in athletics and stuff. I think you can make that deal with the SEC and be like, oh, you got that little that part of Texas. Yeah. Not little part, it's a big part. You got that part of Texas. We're taking this little part of Tennessee, and we're just going to call it even. So I think Memphis makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Final one that everyone always just seems to throw in like, hey, why not? UConn.
What?
Yeah.
No.
That's like a big, I'm serious.
No.
Well.
No.
No, I totally agree. I don't understand UConn on really any level.
No,
I get that basketball is good, but they're terrible at football.
No,
Diaco is a good coach. Rising. I have been to Rentschler Field where they play.
No,
that is not a Big 12 stadium. No.
That.
I mean, we don't disagree. We don't disagree. Yeah.
Let's. You know what? Let's add.
But on
it's at Boise State.
The thinking here, of course, is the New York City market.
That doesn't. But the New York City market is not
a
college football market.
I know.
You know what I mean? That's not a viable college football. I know that's the big. I think everybody looks at L.A. and L.A. is in many respects a college football town because they got USC and they got UCLA and they got a lot of football around there. And they're like, oh well, there's one even bigger. They got New York. Well, New York is not a college football market.
It's like when the Big Ten added Rutgers. It didn't make any sense.
No, you kind of. So if you're asking me right now, who would I add? I'd go Memphis and Houston. Now BYU gets the first call, but I think BYU says no.
Yeah, so. Honestly, as someone who lived in New York, I would say it's like more Penn State and Notre Dame fans than anything else. It's super weird.
What do you think? Let us know. #DCTF Live.